Deep within the Rub al Khali, a brutal world awakens in silence. The empty quarter holds secrets bound by a strict diurnal cycle. This majestic Arabian Oryx is beginning a daily fight for survival. Every natural instinct is tied to an ancient, grueling circadian rhythm. Her specialized hooves allow her to navigate this treacherous ocean of sand. The migration begins before the relentless heat can take its toll. Other macrofauna, like the Cape hare, watch her steady, deliberate progress. She must cover crucial miles while the desert remains relatively cool. Finding sustenance here requires intimate knowledge of the desolate, shifting landscape. Ahead lies a grueling trek through a seemingly endless, barren wasteland. These ancient, dried riverbeds hold life, buried deep beneath the sand. She uses her powerful hooves to excavate thick, succulent desert roots. Even the humble scarab beetle benefits from her disturbed soil trails. These roots contain the only liquid moisture she will consume today. It is a delicate balance of energy expenditure and water intake. But she is never truly alone in the empty quarter wasteland. A striped hyena monitors her every move, waiting for any weakness. Her acute senses are perfectly adapted to detect predators miles away. Deciding the threat is minimal, she boldly continues her arduous journey. She leaves the shadow of the rocks, heading toward open sand. As morning progresses, the overcast sky offers no reprieve from rising heat. Scaling these shifting sand dunes requires immense stamina and physical endurance. Smaller animals, like the desert hedgehog, retreat from the growing warmth. But the majestic oryx presses on, conquering the treacherous geographical peaks. From this vantage point, she maps her route across the desolation. Suddenly, the notorious Arabian winds whip up a blinding, abrasive sandstorm. She lowers her head, employing a streamlined profile against the gale. Even resilient avian species must hunker down until the storm passes. Her stark white coat acts as a shield against radiant heat. Emerging unscathed, she is a true ghost of the Arabian Peninsula. An Arabian wolf stalks the perimeter, testing the antelope's formidable defenses. Lowering her lethal, spear-like horns, she establishes an impenetrable defensive line. A short, aggressive bluff charge is often enough to deter attacks. The wolf recalculates the risk. The immense heat favors the antelope. The predator fades away, leaving the oryx to her solitary migration. By mid-morning, the ambient temperature skyrockets beneath a suffocating, blinding haze. She begins to pant, activating an extraordinary physiological cooling system internally. Reptiles, like the spiny-tailed lizard, fully embrace this blistering, radiant heat. The carotid rete cools her blood before it reaches her brain. This unique thermal regulation allows her to survive where others perish. Every meager patch of shade becomes a highly contested, vital sanctuary. Scavengers watch and wait, intimately familiar with the desert's brutal toll. She aggressively unearths the cooler sand buried just beneath the surface. Lowering her core temperature is critical before the brutal midday peak. Here she will rest, conserving the precious metabolic water she gained. But starvation is as deadly as the heat in this biome. The Deathstalker scorpion smartly retreats deep underground to survive the afternoon. She forces down incredibly dry, thorny brush to maintain her digestion. Her resilient digestive system extracts every microscopic drop of hidden moisture. As midday approaches, the true, punishing test of her survival begins. The hyper-arid desert ecosystem reaches its most dangerous, unforgiving daily peak. She must endure the unrelenting, radiant heat of the midday zenith. A horned viper remains perfectly camouflaged, completely adapted to this environment. Every shallow breath is carefully measured to prevent critical moisture loss. Even the strongest macrofauna are brought to a grueling, slow crawl. She navigates down toward a vast, highly reflective, ancient salt pan. The reflective salt amplifies the brutal intensity of the overcast sky. Every footstep on this crust requires deliberate, energy-draining physical effort. In this completely barren wasteland, she is entirely reliant on herself. A rare stumble reveals the immense physical strain of her migration. Opportunistic scavengers monitor her, sensing the overwhelming burden of the climate. Her usually graceful strides devolve into a heavy, laborious, desperate march. She must pause frequently, balancing forward momentum against absolute thermal exhaustion. Instinct drives her upward, seeking higher ground for minor thermal relief. Even the faintest dry breeze provides a momentary, life-saving cooling effect. Most desert inhabitants sleep through this agonizing phase of the day. The moving air rapidly evaporates any microscopic moisture from her respiratory tract. She stands completely defiant against the absolute harshest environment on Earth. Unable to march further, she vigorously excavates a deep thermal scrape. A desert monitor watches curiously, undisturbed by the sudden violent activity. Just inches below the searing surface lies considerably cooler, insulated earth. She surrenders to the exhaustion, pressing her body against the cooling sand. From a distance, she becomes a seamless part of the barren geography. During these peak hours, the empty quarter appears entirely devoid of life. But survival here is an active, ongoing, deeply physiological battle. High above, a golden eagle rides the immense thermal columns effortlessly. She must remain semi-alert. Deep sleep could mean failing to wake up. Enduring this crucible is the absolute defining trait of her entire species. As afternoon approaches, a subtle, vital shift occurs in the atmospheric pressure. The crushing temperature drops fractionally, signaling it is time to move. Other nocturnal predators cautiously emerge, sensing the fading of the daylight. She resumes her migration, aiming for the distant, towering dune ridges. Miles still separate her from her ultimate, highly sought-after destination. The migration route forces her through a narrow, highly treacherous, rocky labyrinth. This bottleneck restricts her movement and heavily obscures her wide vision. It is the perfect ambush point for the elusive Arabian leopard. A single misstep here could instantly trigger a fatal predatory strike. She is completely exposed, relying entirely on her acute situational awareness. An Arabian leopard silently calculates the distance from the rocky shadows. But the Arabian Oryx detects the subtle crunch of shifting gravel. She immediately pivots, denying the apex predator the element of surprise. A rapid escape back to the open sand guarantees her safety. The shifting sand dune provides a wide, completely unobstructed vantage point. The late afternoon winds fill the atmosphere with rich, golden dust. The shifting light awakens the final tier of formidable nocturnal hunters. Her destination is finally in sight, the highest peak in the territory. The final ascent demands every remaining ounce of her conserved strength. Twilight rapidly approaches, promising a spectacular end to a grueling day. Finally, the punishing hyper-arid desert ecosystem releases its suffocating grip. The shifting temperatures trigger a complete reversal in the diurnal cycle. With her metabolic water safely preserved, she seeks quick evening nourishment. She sheds the accumulated dust of her grueling afternoon march. She follows the natural, winding architecture of the immense, shifting dunes. As shadows lengthen, the perilous open desert becomes slightly more forgiving. Lethal predators emerge, preparing for a long night of hunting. Her specialized hooves leave temporary testaments to her incredible stamina. The evening wind carries the scent of safety and hidden moisture. She is a true survivor, uniquely adapted to this barren realm. A final forage provides the crucial calories needed for the night. The scarab beetle capitalizes on the remnants of her passing journey. Her circadian rhythm dictates a heightened state of alert at dusk. She has conquered unimaginable miles through a ruthless, burning landscape. But her sacred daily migration is not quite finished yet. The setting sun paints the Rub al Khali in muted brilliance. The elusive sandcat finally begins its nightly patrol. Relieved of the crushing heat, she moves with undeniable grace. But darkness brings an entirely new spectrum of predatory threats. She must ascend to high ground before absolute darkness falls. The Arabian horizon bruises into deep shades of majestic purple. The desert hedgehog capitalizes on the safely cooling evening temperatures. Her core temperature fully stabilizes, granting a massive physical reprieve. Ahead lies the singular, towering monument of her long journey. She marches relentlessly toward the ultimate sanctuary of the dunes. This towering 500-foot dune is her fortress against the night. An Arabian wolf senses one final opportunity before she ascends. But she remains fiercely alert, entirely unyielding to the threat. A powerful warning stamp signals her readiness to violently defend. The predator retreats. The high ground offers too much advantage. Now, she must physically conquer this towering monument of sand. Smaller animals watch as she attempts this massive vertical challenge. Every single upward step causes the loose sand to avalanche. Her powerful hind legs are perfectly evolved for this climb. Against this immense scale, her progress appears agonizingly slow. Exhaustion demands brief, highly perilous pauses on the shifting incline. Ground predators abandon the pursuit, unwilling to expend the energy. The shifting terrain fights back, stealing half of every step. Her absolute resilience is a testament to natural evolutionary perfection. The summit is near, a safe haven above the darkness. With one final push, she conquers the massive vertical climb. The high ridges are shared sanctuaries for many desert survivors. She has successfully navigated another punishing, hyper-arid diurnal cycle. The powerful crest winds provide ultimate thermal regulation and comfort. From this vantage, she commands the entirety of the empty quarter. She is the undisputed ghost of the Arabian Peninsula. Predators below can only watch her untouchable, majestic silhouette. A flawless embodiment of endurance, defying the absolute harshest conditions. She rests now, ready to face the grueling cycle tomorrow. This is the eternal, unforgiving rhythm of the wild earth.